Fran Kranz's intense new film, Mass, takes a staggeringly worldwide problem and makes it intensely personal. The movie focuses on two sets of parents whose children were directly involved in a school shooting. One of the stars, Martha Plimpton, delivers a blisteringly authentic performance we can all empathize with. Hello, Martha, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So tell me, Martha, how did Mass come to you?
Well, in a pretty traditional way, my agent sent me the script and said he was friends with Fran, although he doesn't represent him. And he said, you know, I've got this friend who's written this script. He's an actor. It's his first script, and he's going to direct it for no money. You know, you got like $12 and, you know, 2 weeks to shoot this thing. But he'd like you to read it. And I did. And I really, it was one of the only scripts I've been able to read in one sitting. I just was really, really blown away. So then I met Fran in Los Angeles for a coffee, and we talked, and I just instantly liked him. I just found him to be a very sort of calm but determined presence, and a very empathic person. And he struck me as being extremely serious, but also very thoughtful and very, just ready to make this movie, and knew what he wanted to do, really knew what he wanted to do with it. And we spoke, and I suggested to him that I didn't think we should do this without rehearsal. Without table work, and he agreed, although the issue of money and time was significant, but we were able to get together. He was able to convene all four of us in a rehearsal room in New York for about 2 days,
Nice.
Which turned out to actually be just enough.
She's pretty stuck in a place of anger, which is totally understandable. But without giving too much away, she has an extraordinary arc.
Yes, she does. Yes, as you say, she comes to this meeting, which is, which she's compelled to come to. Not only by exterior forces, her marriage therapist and her husband, but also because something else is compelling her to be there. But she doesn't want to. She can't conceive of the thing that she has to do, which is, to sort of approximate some version of forgiveness. In her mind, that's, I think, what she's thinking, and it's just inconceivable to her. She just can't think her way to that place. And the script is so very good because it has such momentum to it, and it just, it's like an avalanche. It just comes, and it trickles, and then it becomes bigger and bigger, until I think there's a moment that I don't think even Gail can see coming, and I think surprises her as much as it does her husband, as much as it does everyone else in the room. And she's, she sort of, I don't know, it just sort of bursts forth. But I think that's a sort of a lesson of the film, in a way, that this is a process. This is a beginning. It's not an end. This is a crack in the armor that hopefully these people can work with, and come out with something else, something other than hate, something other than rage and guilt.
Which is so timely, not just in terms of school shootings, but just so timely in the world today, because I think we can all relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How immersive an actor are you, Martha? Did you bring Gail home with you?
No. I'm not, I'm not terribly, uh, I don't really work that way. I'm a much more pragmatic, sort of practical type of worker. Um, and everyone's different. Everyone has their own way of doing it. But I think all of us actually were very sort of pragmatic and practical about it, largely because we really just didn't have time to mess about. There
Yeah.
wasn't nobody was sort of going off into a corner and saying, I need a minute. There wasn't any of that. And in fact, we had a lot of laughs. we were we really did laugh a lot, and we were always together. There were no dressing rooms to escape to. There was no, we were all in the same, church basement essentially, all day long together. And then, when we'd finish our workday, we'd go back to the hotel and we'd sit in each other's rooms and work on the script, the next day's work, and run lines together and like, and so we were all sort of in our pre-pandemic, our own little bubble, um, having a good time together. But I think that was important because I think, you know, uh, you have to, in a weird way, I think the fact that we all have backgrounds in the theater really helped because we sort of know how to do that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know how to, take it seriously enough to not be so self-serious, I suppose.
Absolutely. And there's such a connection between you and Jason, and that was established so early in the film, and I think that is so important. Did that come out of rehearsal, do you think?
Well, it certainly came out of conversation, because, I mean, in truth, there wasn't that much rehearsal. We had 2 days or 2.5 days, but we really mostly talked. We mostly did table work, and I think we maybe got through the script once.
Wow.
But we mostly talked, and told stories and talked about our lives, and it came very close very quickly. And of course, Jason and I did talk about, what would have brought Jay and Gail here, what the last 6 years have been like. Um, you know, do they share a bed anymore? Do they sleep in separate rooms? And what is therapy like? And, you know, all of those things. But what's brought them to this place, um, we did talk about that. And the funny thing is that Jason and I rarely agreed, but I think that was good and that was very helpful, because it was, not unlike the way Jay and Gail probably are or
Yeah.
were.
Well, and again, I don't want to give anything away, but you have a moment in the final quarter that is just shattering, and that could not have been easy necessarily to get to. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I think, I sort of have when I say that, that we shot it in order, right? At least everything that happens in the room, we did shoot in order, and that was, I think, really critical. But I didn't have to do too much, to be honest. I think the script really did all the work. And I just kind of had to let it. And that's really, I mean, I don't mean to be glib, but I think that that's the honest answer. As I say, there wasn't a whole lot of "I need a minute" or "quiet on the set." That just, it wasn't that kind of process, and I certainly didn't feel the need for it. I think Fran had done so much work, and been so fastidious in his writing, and was so committed to truth that, really all I had to do was just do it.
Wow, well, I'd say you're incredibly humble.
Oh.
I'd say Mass was a departure for you, but the truth is that you kind of spent your career redefining what you're best at. I mean, when everybody's ready to pigeonhole you, it's like, oh, like you're this messed up kid, and then you're this sassy, sarcastic mom. You're always shifting gears, and that's to me the definition of versatile. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
How does it feel to be in the awards conversation on the film side?
I think we're all extremely, extremely proud, and particularly of Fran, of our writer and our director. I think, we're extremely proud, first of all, to have been a part of a film like this. I think Reed says it all the time, and it's very true that this is an actor's dream, is to be able to be a part of something like this, where it's the writing and the directing and the acting, and that's all there is, and it's enough. And I think that we are all extremely proud of Fran's accomplishment, and just thrilled that people are responding the way they are, that people are seeing the film. I don't think any of us expected necessarily that would be the case, but we all sort of felt like maybe this was something really important, something really good. And so I think it's very gratifying to all of us that the film is in that conversation. Feels really good.
What's wonderful about it is, often films like this are a polemic, and this isn't. This kind of cuts to the core of what it means to be human.
Yes, I think so. That's a very good way of putting it. And I think the film very deftly avoids that tone, and makes clear that this is really about human beings and what do we do? It's not a film about a school shooting. It's about what comes after. How do we survive? How do we talk to each other? How can we look each other in the eye? Can we listen to one another? And I think, it's a very, as you point out, a very timely conversation that we should be having, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I really am.
Flashing back for a moment, I have to tell you that I remember being in high school and rushing to see Running on Empty. And I love that film. I thought you should have been recognized for that. It was a great performance.
That was my mom, by the way, who just walked in. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Looking back, what was that experience like working with Sidney Lumet?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Sidney was absolutely one of a kind, and he was just a brilliant and warm and fatherly kind of person. He also raised the bar, I think, for all of us when we think about process. I mean, here's a guy who rarely worked more than 8 hours in a day, who rehearsed fastidiously. He came from the world of live television and theater, and so he rehearsed the screenplay just like it was a play. We had everything, mapped out on the stage, on the set, and we rarely did more than 2 or 3 takes. He was absolutely expert in his art, in what he did, and he was also a practical worker. So I learned an enormous amount from him. I think that I carry with me to this day. Yeah.
I really have a final question, but I want to thank you first on behalf of the LGBTQ community for always being there for us. Your work on Generation is absolutely smashing.
Thank you.
My final question is two-pronged because I'm a huge Jane Fonda fan. So I want to ask you about working with her. You worked with her twice. And then I want to also ask you, looking back on the first day of the rollover set, if you could now, as Martha, visit yourself then, what would you tell her? So part one, part two.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I think, as I recall, Reagan was shot the day that we were there, my first day on set. I think we watched it on the television.
Dear God.
Yeah, that's what I recall. I mean, I may be conflating things, but you know how a child's imagination does crazy things. But that's what I remember. And what would I tell myself? Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know. Get more sleep. Go to bed earlier. You know, I've always been a bit of a night owl, and it's not helpful when you're making movies. You got to get up really early. Get more
That's
sleep.
that's pretty incredible. And
Yeah.
you worked with Fonda twice on Rollover and Stanley and Iris.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really work together on Rollover. I was like a day player on that, but on Stanley and Iris, I did have the enormous pleasure of playing her daughter, and that was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I just rewatched it the other night, and it's one of those films that is really good, and could have been better had it been cut together better, if that makes sense.
You know, I suppose, I don't know. I mean, I know we worked with Marty Ritt, who I adored,
Yeah.
who was a wonderful, terrific man, a man of the same generation as Sidney Lumet. And, you know, I just remember, you know, Jane being phenomenal, Swoosie Kurtz, and of course, Robert De Niro was delightful.
Well, I am bowled over by your performance in Mass. I
Thank
think it's
you.
extraordinary.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you for taking the time to
Thank you
speak
very
with
much.
us.
I
Have a great
appreciate
day.
it.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, Martha.